All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Tammy Pisani, and I am the Austmine State Manager for Queensland. And it is my pleasure to be hosting this webinar today. We are going to be hearing from two member companies today. We have SMSi and Minset joining us to share their expertise for the title of this webinar, From Chaos to Control, Delivering Predictable Maintenance Shutdowns. But before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that I am hosting this webinar from the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara people. And I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we're all working today. And I'd also like to welcome any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that may be attending this webinar. And like I said, we're joined by two Austmine members who will be co-presenting today. And I'm very excited to introduce both of them to you. We have the CEO of SMSi, Ashkan Shamir, presenting, as well as co-founder and director of Minset, Andrew Attrill. Together, they will be delivering a presentation about the practical changes that improve predictability and how these elements turn shutdown performance from an event-based risk into a repeatable solution. But before I hand it over, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about our presenters. Ashkan, as I mentioned, is the founder of SMSi and leads digital transformation and maintenance shutdown execution with more than 20 years of experience in asset-intensive industries. Ashkan has developed programs that have generated tens of millions of dollars in savings while improving safety, consistency, and performance across complex shutdown events. Andrew Attrill is co-founder and director of Minset, where he leads shutdown capability, uplift, and maintenance performance improvement across asset-intensive operations. With deep hands-on experience in shutdown planning and execution, Andrew works directly with site leaders to strengthen readiness, sharpen execution, discipline, and improve governance so that shutdowns are safer, more predictable, and aligned with operational priorities. All right, thank you both for joining us today. During their presentations today, please feel free to submit your questions at any time. You'll see the Q&A interface at the bottom of your screen. And then at the end of their presentation, we'll do a live Q&A. I should also note that this presentation is being recorded, and each of you will receive a link to view this recording in the future, and it'll also be made available on Austmine's YouTube channel. All right, so with that, I would now like to hand it over to Andrew. Andrew, the audience is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Tammy, for your generous introduction. Ashkan and I are feeling a bit of pressure just now. As indicated by Tammy, Ashkan and I are experienced shutdown management practitioners in the resources sector. We've been involved in improvement work over many years. I took part in my first designated shutdown event back in 1989 at Allura Mine near Cobar. Our aim today is to share recent insights and SMSi systems evolution that will enable next level performance and a transition from chaos to control. If you're asking yourself, why is this session important and why would I give up my valuable time to participate? I would remind you that maintenance shutdowns are a necessary high-risk, high-cost activity that most asset owners are exposed to. However, high performance in this area can enable a competitive edge, higher margins, and business growth options that otherwise may not be there. We plan to share a systems overview, ideas, and insights that could be a valuable reference in your improvement journey. When we focus on improving the management of maintenance events, I'm sure we all recognise that chaos is high risk, it's costly, and impacts work quality, where control is safe, efficient, standardised, and predictable. There are many indicators for chaos and control. For me, there are some classic shutdown indicators for chaos. I might observe overloaded management personnel or over-reliance on key individuals. I might see leaders who are unsure of progress status and the basis for the decisions they're making. We might observe incidents or delays that occur during the execution phase. On the control side, indicators might include high levels of worker productivity, Nobody standing around, empty crib rooms between breaks. We might observe kitting and staging of spares and materials in the work areas. We might also see quality assurance processes in use, and there may be an absence of rework occurring during execution. These are just some of the indicators that come to mind in terms of chaos and control and shutdown events. In terms of the relationship between SMSi and Minset, back in 2018, Minset recognised the need for an end-to-end digital management platform. We wanted a central repository for shutdown management information that is generated and tracked outside of the CMMS. This type of application negates the need for critical information on team member laptops. It improves visibility across business units and enables improved status tracking. At that time, back in 2018, while we considered building a system of our own, we were introduced to Ashcam's SMSi platform. Ashcam, would you like to add your thoughts and system insights?
With pleasure, Andy. And thanks, Tammy, for your kind introduction, and good afternoon to all. Look, my journey has started a while back when I was managing shutdowns, about $50 million per year operation. And like most of you or most of sites, we were using a mixture of Excel workbooks. Our CMMS was SAP. Our scheduling tool was MS Project, and nothing else was really connected together. We were heavily reliant on contractors. We had great contractors, few key people who held everything together, if you like. They knew the plant, they knew the process, and how to get things done. And I was heavily involved, doing 14 hours a day, radio in hand, walking the plant, probably doing 20K steps a day. That was at least one positive out of it. And just all that just to trying to stay on top of what was happening. But it really hit me. This is when it really hit me, right? So, and we knew that having the right people is absolutely critical. That's a kind of fact. We all know that. We all rely on great people. But we certainly need something more than that to achieve a higher degree of control and predictability. So if you look at elite Formula One pit crews, and I know this is such a cliche and overused example, but at the same time, it's such a relevant example that I always like to keep coming back to it. So when we look at those Formula One pit crews, they train almost like professional athletes or military special forces. Modern today F1 pit stop involves roughly 20 to 25 crew members, and those sub 2 seconds, amazing records, by the way, those sub 2 seconds of stop we see on TV screen, they're not just speed. It's a result of standardized work, role clarity, a great deal of role clarity and timing, repetition, which brings muscle memory, visual management, and continuous improvement, and the list goes on. So for me, the question always has been, how do we create the same level of control and predictability for our shutdowns? And that's what I'm trying to unpack. This question is what I'm trying to unpack through the course of this presentation, this webinar. Now, if we look at how things looks like today, and I'm not suggesting this is your case, this is what people like Andrew and I have experienced in Australia and globally. We still have lots of Excel work. We still heavily rely on few people to manage readiness cadence. We still rely heavily on manual infield tracking, whether it's a paper, whiteboard, or WhatsApp, which I believe is the absolute worst way of tracking progress from the field, or face-to-face conversation. And the obvious problem there is that all these methods consumes people's time, and they're quite counterproductive, actually, and they provide no structured data at the end of the day. And then we have this bigger problem, which is, despite having great people with all the good intentions, shutdown can still quickly drift into chaos without having the right system in place. So let's just unpack chaos a bit more. So by definition, chaos is complete disorder and confusion. And I have my own definition. I'm sure you have your own definition. But in context of shutdown, and in my experience, it's all about lack of coordination, poor visibility, reactive decision-making, unclear priorities, etc., etc. So I think the more important question to ask is what's causing that chaos in shutdown? And I believe it's a combination of breakdowns across our readiness, process execution management, data and system, and governance. Now, if you jump into the readiness, often what we have found is there is no readiness or very poor readiness cadence in place, minimum to no accountability in a true sense, very poor visibility over readiness cadence. If we look into execution phase, often what we have found is there is no real-time visibility or very poor, or we got delays and visibility coming, but it's quite late in the process. Other big issue we have, supervisors cannot really do their job, and this is something we keep hearing back from our clients. They're just so busy doing administrative job that they cannot really do what is the real job. Now, objectives are not clear. There's a bit of misalignment there. If you look at data and system, even for those sites that have a system in place or some sort of system in place, the data is still fragmented. They don't know which data they can trust. And the last pillar is governance. That one, I believe, is the most important one in my experience. And the problem is, in my view, there is no compulsion like what we have with safety. So there is no expectation in terms of these are standard practices with shutdown management operating system. We don't have such a thing. So there is no expectation to comply with a set of good practices. And that's also another contributing factor to the chaos. Now, before we go further, I think it's a good time to, we plan for a quick poll. So I'm just going to pause. So you should have a pop-up appear somewhere on your screen, I believe. If not, yeah, here we go. So that's a pop-up. There's a half dozens of questions there. Those who can see it, just do a QR code scan on the top left of the screen. There's a QR code bar. And we're going to give everyone 1 minute. Look, I think it will be very interesting to see where the consensus sits across the group. So just feel free just to choose your top priorities there. And we're going to have a look at the results. Unfortunately, we don't have live result as they're forming, so we need to give it a minute and see what comes out. It will be a nice surprise. Shouldn't be far off. I hope 1 minute. I'm sure 1 minute should be enough. Here we go. Hopefully technology is going to work this time. All right, here we go. So what we got. So the top one is poor readiness, 27%, not surprise. Second and the third and the fourth, disconnected data, multiple sources, weak lesson learned, continuous improvement, amazing. Limited real-time visibility, leading to delays and budget overruns. Fantastic. I think, to be honest with you, this is pretty much what I was expecting to see, especially around poor readiness. Andrew, would you like to add anything? Are you surprised or what do you say?
I am a little surprised that work quality didn't get a run at all, rework or work quality, but I'm not surprised in relation to poor readiness and overruns being a key concern.
Very good. All right, look, we are a bit time constrained, so I'm just going to keep moving. All right. So let's talk about what a control shutdown actually looks like. So when we looked at and studied successful shutdown operations, we have found that they all have these five pillars in common. They all have structured readiness cadence. They all have system that enables military type grade discipline. They all have real-time execution visibility. For these folks, 4 hours lag in reporting is simply too late, not acceptable. They all have the single source of truth. They have a structured data that can be trusted. And there is a compulsion, like the safety system. There is this expectation to follow a set of standard practices, if you like, across all shots and all sites. And this is often driven by the leadership. So there is a leadership, a sponsorship top down. And ultimately, they all capture and track lesson learned. It was one of the points came out of the survey. And the actions and the ideas coming out of those lesson learned type workshops, they don't just disappear into the abyss. Now, let's very briefly unpack each of those five pillars just to provide more context. So milestone-driven readiness, what does it mean exactly? What we've seen with these folks is that they are quite meritorious about the readiness milestones. So what it means is that if they fail to achieve those milestones, there must be some form of escalation process. Or if they fail to achieve those milestones, it should result in changing the risk profile of the shot. For example, if they fail to achieve the scope freeze milestone by T-8 weeks into the shutdown, the risk will remain elevated until they get the remaining milestones back on track. So there is this very special attention, if you like, on the key milestones and the way it's treated, and teams being held accountable for achieving them on time. Now, going to the next pillar, the other thing we have seen is these successful operations, they have real-time execution control. So they use technology to gather data from the field back to the schedulers, making reporting live and real-time. This streamlining of data flow helps them in different ways. One, it really helps the supervisors to focus at the work front rather than tied up in reporting and administrative activities. It also frees up the scheduler time, so they are no longer spending hours and hours going through the Gantt marks up or having one-on-one conversation just to update progress across 1,000 line items schedule. It makes reporting more accessible and far more timely, I would say. And it gives leadership much better opportunity to identify issues early on. So if we have issues around the critical path, if there is a risk of overrun, they have enough time to take actions and get the shutdowns back on track before things get worse. Now, the third pillar in our list was single source of truth. So we have seen two major initiatives by this successful operation. One is they have successfully reduced the number of disjointed systems, limited them really to few core platforms that process the data and give them what they need. And second, they have digitalized the shutdown lifecycle from readiness to execution and closeout. But there is an important caveat there, which is very well understood by these operations. And that is the digital work management process is quite different from digital shutdown lifecycle. And that's something they understood very well. Now, combination of these two, reducing the number of systems and digitalizing the shutdown lifecycle, have helped them to move from fragmented data and to be a step closer to one source of truth. Now, the last pillar is around the continuous improvement. So really, shutdowns shouldn't be this repetitive, vicious cycle of firefighting and forgotten lessons. We have seen this, and we believe that having a structured closeout process is critical. Without a structured closeout, a lot of operational knowledge gets simply lost because teams move straight back into day-to-day operation, or they are already into planning preparation for the next shutdown in horizon, which is often the case. Once the data is available, the learning process becomes far more engaging and productive. It helps to define impactful actions and really shift the focus from quantity of actions to quality of actions. So that's the relationship between lesson learned, which is based on data and can help us to drive meaningful actions. What I've seen too often is that teams come out of shutdowns, lesson learned workshops with hundreds of actions and I spend hours and days to prioritize them. Whilst in reality, 2 or 3 good quality action is enough to turn the dial. On action tracking, what we really and have seen is we need an action tracking system which is built at the top of our shutdown data layer, allows us to monitor the impact of the actions over time. Are they genuinely improving performance or not? Or are we just doing actions for the sake of doing actions? For example, we may have data showing that delays caused by waiting for scaffolding were a major contributing to the shutdown overrun during the last event we had. Now, because we now have that baseline data, once improvement actions are implemented, we can monitor and measure the impact during the future shutdown and determine whether it has been helpful, genuinely impactful or not. And ultimately, to stop this repetitive cycle and realize, the greatest long-term benefits, we need to have a shutdown management framework. It has to be compulsory, and it has to have continuous improvement embedded into it consistently and applied across all sites and all shutdowns. All right, so I guess time to share 2 case studies. So the first case study is from one of our clients. The left-hand side picture is a real picture. It's showing number of Excel files and Excel tracker and workbooks that our client used to manage their planning and business. And we made the move into our digital platform, SMSi. And now they have this system that enabled them with a military-grade readiness process across all sites, all shutdowns, all in one platform. So the system allowed them to track milestones, record delays, escalate them, and take corrective actions to reduce the risk. The other example I'd like to show you is in relation to the execution phase. So again, another client, they're using Gantt markups, usually 2,000, 3,000 activities in the Gantt. They move them from the paper into the whiteboard, and then the scheduler is sitting there entering the data into the MS project, and then each report, as you can imagine, there is a delay there. It's quite inefficient, lots of double ups and double handling there. So they have made the move from unstructured notes, paper marks of whiteboard into the live in-field progress update. Now the result speaks for itself. So they have demonstrated shutdown execution supervisor productivity uplift of 1,800 hours per year. Which if you multiply that by average rate of $100 per hour, that gives you the size of the price for that measure. They have enabled schedulers to do remote scheduling, especially when during some of the bigger shots when they have bed and accommodation constraint, that's actually quite handy for them. And they have 100% in-field progress update as well as timely reporting now, which is quite tremendous to see. It's a big change from where they have been and now where they are. Now, I think it's time to start to wrap things up. So I want to go back to that F1 exercise and the question I raised earlier. How do we create same level of control and predictability for our shutdowns? And I acknowledge that there are lots of variables, and many of these variables are outside of our sphere of control, of course. But in my experience, the best way to improve predictability is by turning chaos into control, and that could happen through discipline, military-grade readiness cadence, real-time execution visibility, consistent shutdown approach across all sites, which is backed by continuous improvement mindset. So those are 4 main ingredients there. Now, I think it's a good timing, Andrew, to just come back to you and see whether you like to share any insight with the team.
Thanks, Ash. I appreciate being able to make special comments. A couple of my key thoughts are included in the slide displayed. As I mentioned earlier, shutdowns are high cost, high risk events, and high performance requires strong capability across all elements of the event cycle. Excellence in one phase or aspect won't be enough. Visibility of status and potential risks across each phase and function is critical and is one of the key benefits in the use of SMSi.
Thank you, Andy. All right, so I think we are almost at the end of the presentation. So look, once again, thanks everyone for joining us today. Much appreciated. And before I hand over to Tammy and we move into the Q&A session, just want to share a few extra resources as well. Thank you from our side, from SMSi side. You can visit our website. We have a return on investment wizard calculator. If you're contemplating to put your business case together, that tool can be quite handy. We also offer a free 30 minutes one-on-one chat where we can discuss your shutdowns, pain points, walk you through SMSi and showcase what we've done for others. From Minset side, and Andrew, if you don't mind, they have this shutdown maturity self-assessment, which is really useful tool if you haven't gone through that process before. I wish I had it 10 years ago. It's quite handy and simple to use. And in terms of the session, Andy, probably you are better position to unpack that one for audience.
In terms of the maturity self-assessment, it's a pretty simple tool, but understanding where your shutdown team is on the maturity curve and what's appropriate for your assets and operating environment is valuable. Not every site or plant can justify a high level of maturity. The self-assessment can be a useful reference, and of course, we are always up for a discussion with asset owners related to shutdown management and maintenance improvement.
Thank you. And the final notes before I hand over to Tammy. Once again, thanks for your time. I hope it has been productive, and we are passionate about maintenance reliability. If you are based in Brisbane, we are always happy to catch up over a coffee. If you are in a different zone, I'm happy to jump into Teams and have a conversation there. Over to you, Tammy. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your valuable expertise with our audience today. It's very much appreciated. And speaking of the audience, it is now time for Q&A. So I'd like to remind everyone that it's not too late to submit a question. If you would like to do so, you can use the Q&A interface at the bottom of your screen. All right, well, let's get started with a few questions that we do have. They're not necessarily directed to either one of you, so I'll let you all decide which one should answer. But the first question is, what are the top 3 things my site would need to have in place for a successful implementation?
I'm happy to take that question, Andrew. It's a great question. I think number one, you need to know what success looks like, always with the end result in mind. So that's a good starting point. Number 2, you need to have a great deal of support from your leadership and good stakeholders buy-in. I personally wouldn't start a project like this without support from leadership team or effective stakeholders engagement. And number 3, to be ready to be all in and fully committed and make the shutdown management operating system a compulsory system like safety system. That will be my top 3. Back to you, Tammy.
Great. Good. Well, the next question is kind of a great add-on question to that previous one. And what are some of the key steps I would take to engage my existing leadership team to adopt this platform?
Look, I think I think there are 3 questions that we need to think about when it comes to engaging the existing leadership team to support and adopt the technology. is a question of necessity, is a question of cost, and is a question of risk. It's like a triangle. So in terms of the necessity, there needs to be an open discussion around why a dedicated shutdown management system is necessary. I'm not suggesting that you need one, but if you are feeling that chaos, this is then a good symptom to start that conversation. The other question is a question of cost. So you need to be able to demonstrate the return on investment justify the spend. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And the third question is the question of risk. I think that's reasonably easier than the other two. In many cases, the risk of doing nothing is far greater than risk of adopting a niche digital shutdown platform. Yeah, so Tammy, I will go with that triangle of necessity, cost, and risk.
Right, perfect. Thank you. And unless there are any more questions submitted from the audience, this is the last question, and that is, what level of implementation support can be provided?
Yeah, look, I will answer that question, and Andrew may want to add more into that. So the way we operate in SMSi, we provide full support throughout the journey, throughout the implementation journey. And that support is delivered by shutdown and maintenance professional who generally understand the pain points and operational challenges. They have been on your side doing exactly the same work you're doing today. And our support team is highly empathetic to those challenges. I think this is not a case of simply deploying a tool and walking away. So our focus is on people and successful technology adoption. So these are two important areas that pay special attention: people and successful adoption of technology.
Thank you. Well, we actually just had a question submitted by Dan, and he would like to know if your software assists miners to calculate the cost of partial or complete shutdown scenarios options.
Yeah, it does. So the short answer is does. Yes, it does, and it's obviously more into that. But there is financial, as long as the financial data is available in the system, whether it's coming from CMMS like SAP Pronto or is done manually, then that can be analyzed and reported. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. That was our final question for today. So I would like to thank you both again, Andrew and Ashkan, for your time and your expertise. Yeah, just again, thank you for taking the time out to be with us today, and to our audience for taking the time out of your day to join our webinar. And as a final reminder, this presentation was recorded, so you'll receive a link to view it again and share with your colleagues. You can also find it on the Austmine YouTube channel in coming days. So thank you again for joining us, and I look forward to welcoming you to another Austmine webinar in the future. And I hope you all go out and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, everybody.